At that. Welcome in, Husker Extra Live. It's Parker. There's Steven. We're coming at you over the internet. We should be live on Husker Extra's Facebook page. And also, Sipple, now a new addition this fall. I think we're probably live on the YouTube channel too, the Journal Star's YouTube channel.
Really?
Yeah. So just give me 1 second while we let people filter in the chat here, and we will. I'll get a link onto my Twitter account for this. So here we go. We're back, Sipple. We got a football game coming up here in less than 48 hours.
Yeah, we're heading to Columbus, Ohio, to the Horseshoe. I once called it the shoehorn, and that caused a lot of issues. It's the Horseshoe.
You called it the shoehorn?
Yeah, accidentally. There's some people that never let me forget it. But anyway, yeah, empty. It'll be what did Scott call it today? Scott Frost, a cavernous stadium.
A cavernous, empty stadium.
Yeah, they're we're in a situation for obvious reasons that the AD of Ohio State is actually encouraging people not to even come around the stadium.
Yeah.
Don't even come around the perimeter.
Don't come around here no more.
Well, that's a great one, Parker. That's a great song. So yeah, it'll be. I don't know, Parker. I've heard the word surreal. I've heard the word eerie. I've heard eerie and surreal are probably the most pleasant words I can come up with.
Yep.
But you know what? It is exciting to read all this stuff in Husker Extra, and actually size up two teams that are going to play. And it is. I think it's. I mean, I'm looking forward to that part of it.
It's been a long time coming. So here we are, Husker Extra Live. We are brought to you by Tom Dinsdale, Automotive in Grand Island and Hastings. They're sponsoring us the whole football season, which we are very thankful for. You can see that logo up in the corner of the screen. I would raise up one of my hands and try to point to it, except for that I would for sure get it wrong. There we go. Look at that. So thank you to Tom Dinsdale Automotive. We've got questions in the chat. Sip, should we get to it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Brandon says, do we know if the players will be wearing full face shields on their helmet like originally planned? That's a good question, Brandon. I don't know for sure. I don't think so. The video and stuff that we've seen hasn't had that. I think that the daily testing regimen in the Big Ten seems feeling cautiously optimistic, not fully like they're just in the clear, but cautiously optimistic about how that's going to go. I thought it was interesting. Scott Frost said today in his last news conference of the week that they will actually be tested twice, rapid tested twice tomorrow, once in the morning before they go out to practice, and then again, and before they obviously get on the plane to Columbus, and then again in the evening after they arrive in Ohio. So double test day tomorrow, and then everyone gets tested again on Saturday morning before the game, obviously. So I think that I'm not saying that serves as a full replacement for those face shields, but I'm not sure how many players we'll see.
Hey, Parker, I mean, you're not I know you don't work at UNMC, but
I'm not a doctor, right?
Why would they test twice in a day in the morning? So you say in the morning before they leave, and then when they arrive in Ohio, why twice in a day?
I don't know exactly. I mean, the reason why they test in the morning before they go out to practice is to try to ensure as much as you can a clean, quote unquote, clean practice field, so that everyone has tested negative before they go out to practice that day. The only thing I'm not quite sure about is why then you test again when you get to Ohio. That could be a Big Ten rule. It's not like, I mean, you obviously hope that this isn't the case, but let's say that someone contracted the virus on the plane. They wouldn't necessarily test positive,
That's what I mean.
1 hour after arriving. So I think it's mostly just before you're in the hotel for the night, before you're at a team dinner, just make sure that in those, whatever it is, 8 or 10 hours, that nobody, has has developed a positive result in that amount of time. But other than that, I have to be honest, I don't know exactly. Rosalind, hello from Iowa. Hello. Kent says he's watching on YouTube. There you go. It's a new era. Logan, nice to have the pregame back. Yeah, nice to be back with this, Logan. Let's see. Hi from South Dakota, Steve says. Greetings from Chile. Hi. Rodrigo's back.
Wow. Thanks, everybody.
Well to be at Chile. Lucas says, good evening, guys. Safe travels. Excited to get going. Yeah.
Lucas, how are you?
Lucas. Sipple, Edward says, you need to up your beard game to match Parker. Let's go.
Yeah, it's impossible. I can't do it. I mean, Parker's got me on that. I'm way better looking, but I can't do the beard as well.
You've got a lot more years under your belt, too, so you're ahead of me in that regard.
I can't. I mean, I might try it. I might try it again this year. I might give it a go, but I don't think I just can't. I can't match you.
Tyler is in Bismarck, North Dakota, but he's from Lincoln. Tyler, thanks for being here and for the kind words. Nick, are we going to wear the white black shirt uniforms on Saturday? That's a good question. What do you think, Sipple, if you had to guess?
No, I don't think so. There's like, for instance, the face shield question. I think we'd know if they're wearing face shields. I don't know. And I wouldn't say I'd necessarily. So we're talking about alternate uniforms?
Yeah. Remember, they unveiled those white black shirt alternates the other day.
I just don't think it would be the appropriate time to wear the black shirt alternates against a team that averaged last year nearly 50 points a game. I'm just thinking very rationally and realistically.
As always. I guess I'd be surprised, Nick. I mean, nothing's impossible. I'd be surprised. I'm guessing that's something for later in the year. I know because they were sort of unveiled with sort of like a horror movie trailer that some people jumped to the conclusion about Halloween, but that's a home game against Wisconsin. And so I don't think that they'd wear white alternates at Memorial Stadium. If anything, maybe they would go back to the black ones, but we'll see. That's one of those things we don't know. We haven't been told or led to believe anything about that. So time will tell. Here's a roster question.
Hold on, let me make some commentary, Parker. You know how much the old man cares about that subject? Do you know how much the old man cares about what kind of uniforms they wear?
Somewhere between very little and absolutely zero.
You're a smart lad. Thank you.
Yeah.
Got it. I don't.
That was a toss. That was a softball. Here's a roster question for you. Simple. Justin says project the 6 to 8 wide receivers that we'll see on Saturday.
Oh, we can do that mental exercise. Well, with your help, Parker. I'm going to list them in the order that I like them. Wandale.
1.
Wandale Robinson.
1.
Alante Brown.
2.
I think you better put Cade Warner in there. I think you better put Marcus Fleming and Xavier Betts.
4 or 5. There you go. Okay, so we'll come back to that because there's a couple interesting names, young names.
I think you better put Chris Hickman in there, 6.
6.
I think you definitely better put Wyatt Lever in there. Definitely walk on. From, I believe, O'Neal or Neely, one of the two. Do you know, Parker?
O'Neal, yeah.
O'Neal. So Wyatt Lever, is that way up to 7 or 6?
That's 7, yeah.
Okay, who am I missing?
Levi Falk, I think, would be the other name. In that.
Yeah. No, Falk should be high on that list.
Yeah. Okay, so one name we didn't mention in that list, Omar Manning. Frost said today that he didn't know if Manning would make the trip, which, I mean, speculation's not really my cup of tea. I think if he was going, he would have said he was going. It's just my 2 cents on it. I mean, maybe you would try to spring him on Ohio State, but I kind of doubt it. I guess that's just my read on the situation.
That's a good read. I don't like to do casual speculation either. This is not casual, though. I don't think he's going.
Right.
So that's not really casual. I'm going to say it's not like we don't talk to people.
Right.
I don't think we'll see Omar Manning this week.
But Frost did say today that he's been working, he's been doing stuff with the team, and that he's hoping that he contributes before long. So,
yeah,
I mean, I think it's going to be sort of a week to week thing. I wouldn't be shocked. I'd be surprised, I guess, if big number 5 was out there warming up on Saturday morning, but I wouldn't be shocked if he played against Wisconsin. I wouldn't be surprised if he saw him sometime in the first, 3 weeks or something like that. So
yeah,
I want to go ahead. Sipple.
Go ahead. He's in the fold. I mean, he's active with the team. So go ahead, Parker. Finish your thought.
Well, you listed Marcus Fleming and Xavier Betts, a couple of interesting names on there. We know that Fleming earlier on, sort of at the beginning of camp, I guess, quote unquote, missed a little bit of time. But he's a guy who has been mentioned more and more as kickoff has gotten closer.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I think he's turned it up. What I have heard is he's turned it up in the last week or so, week to 10 days. So Fleming is a speed guy.
Yep.
And that's obviously alluring. And, if he can beat somebody deep and catch a deep ball, that takes the pressure off everybody, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I'd watch him, and I'd love to see Xavier Betts in this game. Now, I mean, you have to acknowledge the fact they're playing a team that will have. Well, okay, forget what me and Parker say. Let's listen, or let's think about what Urban Meyer said. Remember when they announced the schedule, Parker, on Fox, and what Urban Meyer said about the defense? That he said every player on Ohio State's defense is NFL caliber.
Right.
So Xavier Betts, Marcus Fleming go from high school to facing NFL caliber corners and safeties. It's really tough to do. It's tough.
It's interesting. Scott Frost said today too, from sort of the Nebraska perspective. He said he thought any of the freshmen that are healthy. Obviously, we know Will Nixon's going to miss the season after having knee surgery in July. That any of them could go in the game. But then this is what he said. I thought this was an interesting quote. He said, there's various degrees of being ready. You're ready to run some of the plays. You're ready to operate efficiently in some of them or all of them or somewhere in between.
Yeah.
So I think they're just sort of, you're talking about a group of true freshmen, some of whom who've missed some practice time, but all of whom, Alante Brown's been here since January. He's probably the most versed in the offense. The other two guys, Betts and Fleming, summer arrivals. It's been a herky-jerky offseason, obviously. So it might be expecting a little too much to think that they just are going to go out there with full command of the offense. So it'd be very interesting to see how many snaps those young guys get, and sort of what their production looks like in week 1 and then also going forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big challenge for the offensive staff. If you have a bunch of guys that can only run a portion of the plays to get them in there at the right time and run the right ones. That's why veterans like Wandale, who's just a sophomore, and Cade Warner are invaluable. Those guys are really valuable.
John Swick asks Steve Sipple a question, or at least this one is right up Steve's alley. Do you think Dedrick Mills will get to 100 rushing yards this week?
Yes. I would say yes. I don't think he's going to go for 188 like he did against Wisconsin, but I think he can get to that 100-yard threshold against this team. I think I could envision a day of like 24 carries, 102 yards, something like that.
Yep.
Remember why I said that when he gets 24 carries for 102 yards. I think he can. I mean, it gets you into that comment. We don't have to go into a drawn-out conversation, but I think a lot of people right now are inclined to believe this could be a team that leans pretty hard on its running game.
Yeah.
Whatever form that takes, I don't know. It might look like a lot like it did against Iowa in the second half when they did go to Dedrick 19 times. 19 times in the second half against Iowa after going to him only 5 in the first half. And it was pretty straightforward power type runs, not all exclusively, but so yeah, I think he could. They have the offensive line that feels confident, and they have the tight ends, which I think is really important in that conversation. It's just really basic. When you talk about any football team and you say they're strong up front with a veteran line and they got good tight ends, what do you think?
Yeah,
well, they might try to run it a little bit, right?
Yep. Yeah, and it'll be interesting. Ohio State is going to be breaking in some new personnel on defense, and nobody's seen live. I mean, Eric, like Nebraska's talked about going good on good in practice. I'm sure Ohio State's done the same thing, but you're talking about live game action for the first time in quite a while too. So be interesting to see how Nebraska approaches its run game. Edward asks, "What's your true feel, Sipple? You think they stay?" He says Nebraska stays within 10.
Yeah, that's a tall order. But I'm not, Parker. I don't think we're going to Columbus to cover a blowout. I don't think that's what's happening here. I think that because I think Nebraska can move the ball, and what becomes key. There's a few things that become really key in my mind. If Nebraska, if they get in the red zone, they got to capitalize.
Right. Yep.
They weren't a good red zone team last year. So that's big. And then on the other side of it, they have to, on defense, play well in the red zone. Right. Because Ohio State's going to get there. Ohio State's going to move the ball. But it'd be really, really important for Nebraska. Let's say Nebraska forces 3 or 4 field goals as opposed to 3 or 4 touchdowns. That would otherwise field goals that would otherwise be touchdowns really affects the score. So those are things that come to mind. But yeah, I think Nebraska can move it. What their situation is up front. They lost their front 4. They did, and then they have 2 guys in the interior that they're counting on that will be out. One because of an injury, another one because he got shot, and he's recovering
in the face.
Yeah, recovering from a gunshot wound. So they're without 2 key guys. In addition to being without Chase Young, who's playing for the Washington football team or club. Is that what they call it? The Washington Football Club. And
Washington
then I don't know.
Team, WFT.
Okay. And then I don't know where Malik Harrison went, but he led them in tackles last year. And he had 16 and a half tackles for losses. So he was a weak side linebacker or outside linebacker, and he's no longer there. They lost their 2 best players. So we'll see what all that looks like.
Rodrigo from Chile, do you expect some playing time for Luke, number 7, on Saturday?
Go ahead, Parker. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think in some way, shape, or form you'll see him. I mean, they think he's one of their best athletes and one of their best players on offense. And I think that they're going to find a way to get him involved. And it's a hard conversation, or it's a weird conversation, because I simultaneously think that they are not going to move him from being a quarterback. They've been adamant about that. He's a quarterback. He's a quarterback. He's a quarterback. We hear that all the time. And yet, I think that you're going to see him in some capacity that is not what traditionally how a quarterback plays. He might be lined up and he comes in motion or whatever. I mean, there's just some things they can do to get him involved. And I don't know. I'll be very interested to see if he plays 10 snaps or if he plays 40 or what. But I guess the thing that would be most surprising if you didn't see him at all on Saturday.
I agree. I don't know if they're set packages if they have a set time they want him to go in. I've seen that before.
Yep.
Veteran Nebraska fans can remember when Missouri. When it was Chase Daniel that would come in the game. I don't know if he was coming in for Brad Smith or somebody, but they had a set time to do it. No matter what, and it was weird. Nebraska played them in Columbia one time, Parker, and Missouri, I think, had a touchdown and a field goal on their first 2 drives, and they went to the backup quarterback, and it stymied them.
I don't think you'll see that.
Yeah, I don't. Coaches do it all different, and you have to really, really. I think it's a challenge for a coach, but I'm not suggesting that it's not a challenge that Frost can't handle. I just think it's a challenge how he's going to do it. But I'll tell you what, the beauty is for the purpose of these discussions and Tom Dinsdale Automotive, it'll be a very intriguing discussion for the next 9 weeks.
It sure will. And we'll have updates, just while we're on that note, we'll have updates from Columbus, obviously, before the game and after the game. And in addition, video updates, in addition, obviously, to all kinds of written content, which gets to Holly's question. Do you guys get to go to the game? Yeah, we are fortunate. We're headed to Columbus in the morning, and we will be among the handful of people in the Horseshoe to bring all of you guys the best coverage we can from the game. So it's going to be weird, but it's going to be fun. Adam, what do you think of the points spread? Is it finally time for Nebraska to have a signature win? One of the things that we've talked about, Sipple, is that over the past 2 years, Nebraska haven't really beaten a team that they weren't supposed to beat. And you figure that has to change at some point, right?
Yeah. It might be a little much to ask.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really an example of that.
This is really a team they're not supposed to be.
Right. A 26-point underdog.
Yeah.
To put that in perspective, there was an upset of Nebraska's, when Nebraska was really rolling in the early 90s, there's an upset that everybody goes back to. It was an incredible situation that happened in Ames, Iowa, when Iowa State, which had lost 5 of its previous 6 games and was a 29-point underdog, beat Nebraska.
Yeah.
29-point underdog. And it was a colossal upset. You could make an argument that it was the biggest upset of the 92 season. So I guess what I'm saying is that maybe this would be classified as one of the biggest upsets of the 2020 season if Nebraska were to pull it off. You don't know what's going to happen the rest of the way in college football, but this would be sizable. It would be major national story if Nebraska were to go into the Horseshoe and topple 5th-ranked Ohio State and basically push them out of the national title race. I just don't know if they could recover. I don't think they could recover from that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Dean says, good luck. I'll be watching from New Zealand, 5 a.m. Sunday morning kickoff. That's awesome, Dean.
Thanks for all the that's
commitment. Cool. Joe says, what's up from Minnesota? Jared says, hi, Sip and other guy. What's up? Maybe I should change my little banner here to other guy. Kent says, what is Nebraska's best formula for Saturday? Pass to set up the run or run to set up the pass?
Well, okay. What do you think I'm going to say?
Run to set up the pass if I had to take a wild guess.
You got to run the ball and stop the run. I'm never really going to deviate from that. But this team, Parker, come on. This team, I think, is, if you just look at personnel, I think they're better set up to be a run-first team.
Right.
Because of Dedrick Mills and because of the offensive line, because of tight ends, which we mentioned. If they were a little more experienced at receiver and they had more proven weapons, it would be a little different discussion. So, no, I think it is definitely run to set up the pass.
Yeah, I think so too. And a lot of it, like you say, is just there's so much that you can wrinkle off of the run game, especially the way Nebraska wants to run the ball, from just your pure good old fashioned, play action stuff to quick hitting passing stuff. And then you get into the, run pass option and all of the tags they have and the reads and all of that. If you can loosen up a defense and if you can get, particularly in the middle of the field, if linebacker is a second level and Ohio State, they're most veteran on defense at the linebacker level with Tuff Borland and Pete Warner, guys that have been around for a long time. So if you can get them flowing up toward the line of scrimmage or moving with your run game, you can manipulate more in the passing game. And to me, that might not be the case every week, but this week I think that it's run to set up the pass. Related question, Tren has a good one. How much of an impact do you think Greg Austin will have in his new position as a run game coordinator? Tren thinks it might be a big one.
I think it would be too. I mean, I wonder if you already saw it in that Iowa game. I wonder how much impact Austin had in radically changing their approach from the first half to the second half and then taking that approach into this season. That's what I really wonder. You've heard Austin talk, Parker. I mean, what he's talked about is appealing, I think, and that is he wants to get really good at a few run schemes and get really good at those and work off them. It's he has seemingly a very deliberate approach, not complicating things. Just get really good at what you do and do it. And I think that's what the run game's about. I don't think you're trying to fool people too much.
Right.
Parker, I don't think that Scott gives him. See, I'm not of the mind. Some people say, Sip, come on, head coaches just hand out those tags for whatever reason. No, I think that what Scott did was somewhat about accountability. There's someone now accountable for the run game. And I think that alone, it can be important.
I think another wrinkle in this is what I've gathered from the way both of them have talked in the past few months, and is that Greg Austin and Matt Lubick are sort of peas in a pod in terms of how they think about offense. And obviously, Scott Frost is still a play caller here, and Frost is still, the top of the head of the snake, so to speak, in terms of the offensive, brain trust. But I think that those two guys, Lubick and Austin, seem to really be on the same page, and it'll be interesting to see. Frost said he might not notice much difference schematically, but I do think that you'll see a commitment to the run game, and we'll see how that goes. Obviously, if you fall behind any week, this week or any other week, then that gets more challenging. But I think you'll see him try to stick with it.
Yeah, I do too. Now, I mean, they ran the ball 62% of the time last year, so we've talked about Parker. And that's significantly more than 2018. I think the number was 53% in 2018. Now, I don't think it would go much higher than 62% in terms of how often they run the ball, but I think it could look a little different. And that's the important thing, is what's it look like. So that's what we're all kind of waiting to see, what it looks like with Austin. But I don't know if I verbalized it well or not, but I think putting that accountability for the run game on one person you can direct that accountability to, I do think that's meaningful. And what I like I'll tell you what I like, Parker, I probably should write this at some point, or should have written it already. What you have there is Ryan Held as a running backs coach who's very intent on having that position look like it did when Nebraska was rolling. Nebraska would always have, like Wisconsin, it would have 3 or 4 really good running backs.
Yeah.
And then Austin, of course, played offensive line at Nebraska and is very familiar with the traditions. Austin didn't play in the heyday, but he played when they were pretty good. And Austin was a good offensive lineman. So you have two kind of Nebraska guys that are responsible for the run game. And I think there's some value in that too.
Tyler asked, what are the chances we see triple option with McCaffrey dotting the I and throwing it long on a quadruple option? I hope. I mean, we would all be better for it.
Yeah, especially the oldsters would, there'd be a lot of tears if that happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Tears of joy.
Is it fair to have any expectations for Nebraska to get a specific improvement in outcome versus last time Nebraska played Ohio State? Matt, I think what we were just talking about, had a good long talk about run game, and to me, that would be it.
Yeah,
I'd like to see how a veteran secondary holds up against that talented receiver core, but I would say I'd start with the run game.
Yeah, I think I think this game, I look at this game differently than last year because of that, but also because of what I mentioned. No Chase Young, no Malik Harrison, no Jeffrey Okudah, no Fuller, no Damon Arnett. I mean, those guys are all, Parker, I think they're all in the NFL.
They're all in the NFL,
yeah. How the hell could they not be? I mean, it was just because they don't want to be. Chase Young. What did Scott say about him? He was the best pass rusher he's been on a football field with.
Yeah.
Or a college football field with, at least. Yep. Malik Harrison he just wreaked havoc. Jeffrey Okudah was one of the best corners I've ever seen. Damon Arnett was excellent. Fuller was an excellent safety. Those guys are all gone. Those are tough shoes to fill. And Urban Meyer, interestingly, said he said the only weakness Ohio State has is a secondary. I would say they have. I wonder about the front. So, their very front end and their very back end have some things to prove, at least when you talk about them being as good as Clemson and Alabama. And that's what everybody's going to be watching. Do they belong in the conversation with Clemson and Alabama? Right now, Parker, Notre Dame's ranked third. That's a joke. I mean, that's a huge separation. That now maybe Ohio State can fill that gap.
Jared asked, who do you think will return kicks and punts? Good question, Jared. Don't know exactly for sure. Some combination. Ryan Held talked about a combination of guys in terms of kick return. Ramir Johnson, Wandell Robinson, Marcus Fleming are among them. In terms of punt return, I think it's possible. Like Cam Taylor-Britt was a guy they trust to catch the ball back there. Returned a couple last year. Alante Brown factors in the kick return game too. Cam Taylor-Britt, maybe Alante Brown in the punt return game. I don't think you'll see Wandell back there just for the simple fact of, you got to kind of make sure that, you can't lose a guy like that.
Well, you hear it now, Parker. I think you would say the same thing about Cam Taylor-Britt.
That's true.
I'm not saying he won't be back there, but when I read that list of guys they're considering, my thought was just what you said about Wandell. Ooh, I don't know if I do that with Wandell. And my second thought was, I don't know if I do it with Cam Taylor-Britt. Now, I think you could – I would like to see what Ramir Johnson has as a kickoff returner, because he's fast and he does run with abandon, it looked like to me against Maryland. He looked to me like a guy that might be a pretty good kickoff returner, because he's sort of a runs with his hair on fire guy. And that's what you need in that spot. So I'd like to see Ramir Johnson back there taking kickoffs. I don't know what you do at punt return. Parker, do you put a true freshman back there against Ohio State? Now there's no crowd, which helps. That helps a lot. And maybe that would lead you to say, you can try it, Alante. But that, man, and it's still Ohio State.
Yeah, I think it depends on the situation there. I mean, if you're talking about having to make a call, whether, if they're punting from the 40 and you're going to have your, heels on the 8-yard line or whatever, then I might put Cam Taylor-Britt back there, because you just trust him to make a good decision. Either fair catch it and take it there, or let it go over your head and don't do anything dumb. I guess we'll find out. Sean, has Omar Manning been hurt, or did he come into camp late? More the former than the latter, Sean. He's been on campus since June, was when he got out of Kilgore and up to Lincoln. He's been hurt. Scott Frost said he's also dealt with some personal issues. He's just missed a bunch of practice time. He's around the team now. It's hard to say exactly how much time he missed or when he missed, or frankly, if he's back on the practice field in a full capacity now. We just don't have a lot of details about that. But it's one of those things where, when someone says it's a personal issue, you just don't really push further than that, because it's not. I mean, it's his business, and they're obviously working, with him, and they want him to be healthy physically and mentally. And when he is, he'll be in there.
You got it.
Let's see. Possibility that Luke and Adrian are on the field at the same time, Lucas asks.
Oh, yeah, I think at times you could. Parker, I sort of feel inadequate when this discussion comes up. I don't know what it's going to look like. I mean, my belief is that you'll see McCaffrey play quarterback in this game.
Right.
Now, beside that, now there is an interesting discussion to be had about McCaffrey perhaps playing receiver again. Right. And that discussion is simple to me. And this is what a head coach has to think about in the coaching staff. And that is, if we're gonna commit to playing him 10 or 12 plays at receiver, we're gonna send him over the middle. If he gets cracked and hurt, that's an issue, because then if Adrian would get hurt, now we're looking at playing a true freshman quarterback in Logan Smothers against the toughest schedule at Nebraska that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So I guess the answer there, Parker, is I would expect that maybe McCaffrey wouldn't be spending a lot of time jacking around at receiver.
Right. Yeah, I think you'll see him on the field at the same time at some point. I don't know how many snaps, though. Like you say, pretty limited, I would think.
What would he be doing, though? Like against Iowa, he came in as a decoy, again, when Spielman ran an end around.
Yep.
And Luke came out there as a decoy. Well, like what happened was Adrian faked a pass to McCaffrey and handed it to Spielman. So stuff like that could happen, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you could toss him the ball or hand him the ball and then have it be RPO after he takes a handoff, right? I mean, something like that. I mean, you could see, or a flanker pass or whatever. So it'll be very interesting. You could run him out of the Wildcat and flank Martinez out. I mean, teams do that with.
There you go, Parker. Yeah, you're good at that. Yeah, that's a good thought. That's a good thought.
Teams do that with players that are less quarter. I mean, teams do that with a running back. They put their quarterback out wide and they run Wildcat. So you could run Wildcat with McCaffrey, but just instead of a running back, he's just basically another quarterback. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, there's the thing that I'm curious about is there's so many unique ways that you could do it. But Matt Lubick talks a lot about wanting things to fit within your system and within what you do. So I don't think they're going to venture too far into the absurd, just to say they put Luke McCaffrey on the field. So it'll be very interesting. Dirk Edwards asks, is Stevel Knievel sad he can't ride his motorcycle anymore? I'm going to start calling you Stevel.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that because when I was growing up, Evel Knievel was a hero of mine. So no, I'm not. Am I sad I can't ride right now? Winter came pretty fast, it feels like, so a little bit. But you know what? We got football to cover though, and that sort of occupies my thoughts.
That's right. That's what Ken said. Thanks for doing this. Hot dang, Husker football's back. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. So it's exciting though. Michael, Nance and Peanut. That's Demarion Houston. What happened to them at receiver? Yeah, Michael. I mean, short answer is we just haven't heard a lot about them. I mean. If you ask specifically about them, Matt Lubick said they're making some progress and they're willing learners and all of that. But when coaches just get to rattling off guys and you just don't hear that much about them. Let's see. Catherine GBR, strong usage. Tom suggests strong usage of two quarterbacks this year. We'll see. Fred, what's your overall assessment of where the defense is as we start the year? Simple.
I think the defense after last year has a pretty long ways to go, particularly at the linebacker spots. And I say across the board on that. Think about it. Okay, yeah. I'm not going to do this, Parker, where I go into a long harangue about the fact they allowed 5.7 yards per carry in the Big Ten.
How much?
5.7 yards a carry. They allowed 5.7 yards a carry, which is a really absurd number, right? It's alarming. That's what you call an alarming number. Now, you got to cut into that. And I think a lot of that will have to do with linebacker play. But, okay, I mean, you want to get into it. The Davis twins are on NFL rosters active, one with the Steelers, one with the Buccaneers. Darian
Daniels now.
Yeah, he got called up. He got activated with the 49ers. They had 3 down linemen that are in the NFL. And as you mentioned yesterday, Parker, and you add in Lamar Jackson, they had 4 NFL players. 4 players that are on NFL active rosters.
I know. It's crazy.
Right. Yeah. So you'd say, well, why weren't they a better run stopping team? Well, a lot of it was linebacker play. And it's not just that.
Tell them to catch you on Facebook. Tell them to catch you on Facebook, Sipple.
Yeah. Stopping the run is it takes 11 to do it really well. And that's the answer. I mean, that they have to get better there, and you have to generate more of a pass rush.
Two of the guys I'm most interested to see on the defense. I mean, there's a ton of guys. at pretty much every single defensive lineman. We just don't know what it's going to look like, good, bad, or otherwise. But and here's a question from Michael that gets to this too. Which outside linebacker comes out and surprises Nebraska fans? Honestly, I think it's Nick Henrich, who is newly an outside linebacker.
Okay. Why do you say that, Parker?
Well, because I'm also curious to see Luke Reimer at inside linebacker. I think he's going to play a lot, probably an even split between him, Colin Miller, and Will Honus. But Henrich would have been the fourth guy in that rotation, and they'd like to ideally have four guys that can play there. But they moved Henrich to outside linebacker, and the stated rationale has been that he's got to be on the field. So if they're moving him positions because they feel like they have to get him on the field, I mean, if he was going to play an equal share of reps with those other guys at inside linebacker, that would be around 50%. You've got two on the field at a time. So 50% of the base reps plus maybe some nickel or whatever, which 50% of your base reps, maybe that's like 25 snaps a game, 30 snaps a game. So that means to me, if I'm connecting the logical dots here, that means he's going to play more than that at outside linebacker, because otherwise you wouldn't be moving him to get him on the field more if he was going to play less. So I think he's going to play a lot. I mean, we'll see. And maybe it's some inside and some outside, but it just seems to me like he's a guy that they're going to count on probably right away. And that's a big task, right? I mean, setting the edge and playing on the perimeter, it's about more than just being flashy and getting to the quarterback and making big plays. That is a critical component of the defense, and it's one that they really, really lacked in overall last year.
Yeah, I like your analysis on Nick Henrich, and I think that in this conversation, I do think Luke Reimer is going to be important. In fact, in our preseason edition, Parker, you identified Reimer as perhaps someone who could come out of the season as Nebraska's leading tackler. Yeah. And I think you could be right. Last year, for perspective, Will Honus, Miller, and who was the other inside?
Mohamed Berry.
Yeah, Mohamed Berry. All three of those guys were top 5 tacklers. I wouldn't be surprised if all three of those inside linebackers were in the top 5 on the tackling chart when all is said and done. I just wonder I'm just interested to see how much impact Reimer can have. I mean, Reimer and Henrich are really interesting because they're sort of the future of the linebacker core, I think. Yeah. They've been identified that way. And so how ready are they as young guys? Reimer is a sophomore. Henrich is a redshirt freshman. And then, you hope – I feel like we gloss over that Will Honus and Colin Miller a little bit. Miller's played well enough in his teammates' eyes to be named a captain, which is encouraging. Right. And Honus can lay the wood. I mean, Honus will smack you.
And he was playing better as the year went along too last year. I mean, he was a guy, and Colin Miller too, but Will Honus, I thought in particular, looked like a different player at the end of the year than he looked like at the beginning.
I thought so too. So I think there's some encouraging signs there. I think Mike Dawson, as the new outside linebackers coach, he has a big job to get those guys where they need to be.
He does. Oh, man, here we go. So Jared, in our comment section, Jared says it's Big Sky. So we know who that is, Sipple. And then on a related note, Tyler asks, who is the bell cow of early break, Sipple or Jake? Here's an opportunity for cross-promotion for you.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good one. I'd say Jake. I mean, Jake's
the bell cow and you're the workhorse. How about that?
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Parker. That's very diplomatic of you. Yes, let's just go with that.
Kent off of the YouTube channel asks, could Cade Warner be on punt return? Good hands. Yeah, there's another guy you could trust to go back there and catch the ball. I don't know how much he's worked with them, but maybe.
Yeah, I don't think he's a candidate.
Okay, 2 more and let's get out of here. Kent, will special teams be improved without Jovan DeWitt and did his bout with throat cancer keep him out of the picture too much? Yeah, Kent, I don't know about that. I mean, he was around, and obviously, I mean, when you're dealing with cancer like Jovan was last year, that's got to be your priority. I mean, there were days where he could barely coach. I do think that Zach Crespo ended up being really heavily involved in that, especially on the field. I mean, I don't want to sit here and say, did he do his job well or not because of that? But, he found an opportunity he really liked at North Carolina. He's got the same job title there that he had here. Scott thinks that the outside linebacker play and the special teams play are both going to be better this year. And obviously he really trusts Mike Dawson with the outside linebackers. And then Sipple, let's finish it off on this. We're at 45 minutes. So, we got to get packed and all that before we hit the road. What's your realistic win-loss record at the end of it with a brutal schedule? Let's say that they play all of the games they're supposed to play, including a crossover game on the 19th. So a 9-game record from you, Sipple.
What do you hear virtually everybody say, Parker? I mean,
I think my answer is slightly different, but you hear a lot of people say 5-4.
Yeah, it seems like everybody pulls out the 5-iron and just says, I'm going to lay it up in the fairway.
Just right down the middle.
Maybe 5, whatever you take out of the bag. I've looked at the schedule a lot, and that's sort of what I come to. I don't like doing predictions because I'm never right, but 5-4 seems most plausible to me. 5-4.
I picked in our preseason publication, and so I'll stick with it here. I picked 4-5. I think it's a really tough schedule. I could see. I don't think it's impossible that they start the year 2-2 in those first 4 games. Until we see it, 1-3 is what I said, I guess, for the first 4. If they come out and take it to Wisconsin a week from Saturday, then I think you reevaluate. That might mean you reevaluate where Wisconsin's at, but that might also mean you reevaluate what you think of Nebraska going forward and how manageable that is. But let's not forget that out of the 8 games they play in the regular season, Ohio State, Penn State, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Minnesota all finished last year in the top 15 in the AP. Now, obviously, weird off season. All of those teams have lost varying degrees of players, but man, like you say, it's a rugged stretch. So I think I'll take 4-5 for now, and then the beauty of it is, as Eric Chenander likes to say, the beauty of it is on Saturday they're going to turn the lights on and we're all going to find out together.
Yeah, and I would. The only thing I would add to that conversation is, and I've been saying this for weeks, is the Wisconsin game to me is gargantuan. It's easily, to me, the biggest game on the schedule. There's short-term ramifications. There's long-term ramifications. There's historic ramifications. They got to end that 7-game skid soon. This would seem like a pretty good opportunity to do it. And to start 0-2 would it's really difficult to. Okay, then you face in a tough trip to Northwestern, and that gets really perilous at that point. The possibility of an 0-3 with Penn State coming up next. I think the Wisconsin game is just. I'm all about it, and I almost frame up this game against Ohio State in that context. I think even if they're losing by a substantial margin in the second half, I think it's really important that Frost keeps his guys playing and tries to do anything they can to play well in the second half and take some momentum out of that and into Wisconsin. I've always heard Hubie Brown talk about that in the NBA playoffs. When a team's losing in a series bad, there's a game coming back up. And if that team, even the team that's losing bad, finishes well, there's something to be gained from that. And I think that's that sort of mindset's at work here too.
There you go. We'll call it there. You can catch us on Facebook and on YouTube before and after the game from Columbus on Saturday. We've got a ton of content at huskerextra.com. Thanks again to Tom Dinsdale Automotive of Grand Island and Hastings for sponsoring this Facebook or this Husker Extra live edition. Nick, thanks. See you guys. We will be as safe as we can traveling. So for Steve, I'm Parker. We'll see you from Columbus. Thanks for watching.